The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and a heartwarming journey into a whole new world populated by the same old shit.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And this is podcast episode number 263. This week we're going to be discussing the premiere episode of Tales of the Walking Dead. This is season 1, episode 1. Title of the episode is Evie/Joe. So like the two characters that are in the show, they're doing like the name/name. They're going to use that title sort of idea for a few of them I've seen. I peeked ahead. I didn't mean to, but I did.
So you could say that then our show should right now be kind of called Diana/Steve. You
could say that, yeah, if you wanted to. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Well, there you go. That's it. That's all people need to know. Forget the Aim for the Head bullshit. All right. We are now Diana/Steve.
Steve. There we go. Yeah. At least for these 6 episodes.
Yes. We'll have to introduce ourselves that way we've got 5 more to go. At least this season. Who knows when they're going to crank out some more. So before we get started, ladies first, what were your thoughts on this episode, sir?
No, you can go ahead.
Oh, are you sure?
I'll let you go. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit offline. I think there are some interesting elements that they've brought forward. I would say I would watch a Tales of the Walking Dead episode any day of the week and twice on Sundays before any Fear the Walking Dead episode. So it's got that going for it. So that's positive. I really love these actors. I think some of the elements of the story were interesting. I don't think they achieved like any good like tension or stakes. Any of the stakes felt kind of painted on and not earned, and that's going to be hard in a one-off episode. You don't want it to be like a slasher fest all the time, and you want there to be some kind of heart, but it felt like they couldn't find the right balance between learning about these new people that we're only going to get for a short period of time and giving them some honest-to-goodness stakes. So they sort of towed the middle for kind of all of that for the most of the episode. It was okay. What did you think of the episode?
I'm kind of right there with you. I think when we were just like, I think we were texting about it, and my response was kind of meh.
Yeah.
And it's funny because just about everything you said was stuff that I was going to touch on, and that I really like both of these actors. I think they're both good, and have chops. The show itself, because it's part of the Walking Dead universe, it looks amazing, right?
Yes.
So the crew, the designers, the people that make the show, they're really good at what they do. And where I think this episode let everyone down was the writing. And I know you have some very specific, issues with a lot of the moments in here that we'll get to, where you're like, I didn't like this, I like that, and other, and I have a couple as well. But I think the overall structure of the episode was fine in terms of a story arc. Prepper is, survives the apocalypse. Then for reasons that are explained, he decides to venture out and track someone down, and he meets this other person. And then, of course, when he finally gets to where he needs to go, it's not what he expected. I think that's a perfectly good story. It's just, oh my God, it was so slow and boring. And like you said, they spent so much time developing the relationship between Evie and Joe, and then the episode's over and we're never going to see him again.
Right.
So you're like, guys, no. You don't have the luxury of taking, 12, 13 minutes of your 27-minute episode and devoting it to developing the relationship between these two. That's not going to work. This needed a little bit more action and a little less of them sitting around the campfire yakking, and I think this episode reminded me a lot of Creepshow, of the series Creepshow. And I know you haven't stuck your toe in that water yet. But,
it's next, I swear to God.
Sure, of course, yes. But that's also an anthology show. Obviously, it's Greg Nicotero's baby. And don't get me wrong, I love Creepshow. I think as a show overall, it's great. But I will tell you that it's 3 seasons, and they do like less than 10 episodes a season, so it's somewhere between like 26 and 30 episodes they've done total so far. And each episode on Creepshow is actually 2 stories. It's an hour-long program, and they get 2 stories. So let's just say there have been 60 stories on Creepshow so far that they've done, and I know that's not 100% accurate, but just as an example, I would say a good, being truly honest, at least 20 to 30 of those episodes, I was like, okay. We're just either whatever they were trying to do didn't grab me, or I thought it was a little slow, and so with an anthology, kind of like what you said, these are one-off characters that we're never going to see again. So you really only get that one opportunity to tell your story because they're done. There's a lot of times where it's hit and miss, and I think that's normal. I mean, even the Twilight Zone, the old Twilight Zone by Rod Serling, there are old Twilight Zones where I'm like, that's not that great. But then there are some that are freaking awesome, and that's what I'm hoping for. The Parker Posey one is up next week. I'm really expecting and hoping good things from that because I love Parker Posey. She is always a hoot to watch. And from what I can tell, it kind of has a Groundhog Day kind of vibe to it.
Yes, which looks really interesting. I mean, that alone is really sucking me in.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying is that, for people that watch this episode and they're kind of like, really, this is it? And I know you've pointed this out before we started that some of the chatter online is not too positive so far. But it's like, guys, give it a chance to breathe. Let's see what they're going to do. I'm right there with you that this was a questionable choice for your first episode, for your pilot premiere episode. But let's see what they're going to do, because I'm really hoping that there are better episodes coming, and episodes that are just going to appeal to me as a viewer, with my preset conditions of what I think is good television. So we'll have to see. Anyway, those are my long, quick thoughts. But overall, I like the idea. I didn't think this episode was all that great. I thought it was a little slow.
Yeah, we should call them Qualong, because they're quick, long thoughts.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
We do have some specifics to get into on things we liked, didn't like, stuff that hit us. But before we get into that, let's proceed first with what we were given by AMC as the episode description for Season 1, Episode 1. Steve, if you want to go ahead and handle that, and then we'll move on.
All right. Well, this week's episode of Tales of the Walking Dead is being brought to you by the state of Michigan. Even in the zombie apocalypse, people, Michigan is still forking boring. So come to Michigan or stay home. What's the difference? All right. So the episode in question again is 1.1, which is the premiere episode of Tales of the Walking Dead, and it is Evie/Joe. And our description is, in a road trip story, a reclusive prepper abandons his bunker in search of a female prepper from his past. Along the way, he meets an unlikely ally who is his polar opposite, and a vegan, kind of. And they team up in an effort to find their lost loved ones. That is your episode description.
Excellent. And as is usual, you have made some notes about writers, directors. Let's tackle those first, and then we'll get into our points.
Absolutely. Well, our writers, it's a writing team, and our director are all people that we have heard of before. They are all part of the Walking Dead family. Our writers are a team. It's Maya Goldsmith and Ben Sokolovsky. And their experience it was in the Walking Dead universe is entirely with the world beyond.
Oh, interesting.
And with Ron Underwood as our director, his experience, unfortunately for us, it's all with Fear the Walking Dead. So there's a little coming up. So Maya Goldsmith, she started out, and the very first episode she wrote on World Beyond, she actually wrote by herself. That was a solo one. But then, like I said, the rest of them, a lot of them, she teamed up with Ben Sokolovsky and also with Matt Negretti. I don't know how you pronounce his name.
I think it's Negretti,
actually.
The
showrunner.
Yeah.
Is it Negretti? Okay.
Yeah,
We'll go with that for here. So Matt, if we're mispronouncing, I apologize. But she did team up with him as well on a couple of them. But the first one she did was episode 1.6, which was entitled Shadow Puppets, which was the first appearance of Percy and Tony, if you remember that one.
I sure do.
And then she wrote 1.9, and this one she did write with Ben Sokolovsky, and that's The Deepest Cut. And that's the episode where Felix is dragging the unconscious Percy, because Percy's been shot by Huck at this point, and he imagines that Percy is talking to him, if you remember that little sequence of that episode. And then she wrote 1.10, which was the season finale, the first season finale, and she wrote that with Matt Negretti and Ben Sokolovsky, and that was called In This Life. And then in season 2, she wrote 2 episodes. She wrote 2.4, which was entitled Family is a 4-letter word, and that one she wrote by herself. And that's it's dealing with the CRM, and there's a lot of flashbacky stuff with the 2 girls, with Hope and I don't know, whatever the other girl's name was. I'm totally
Iris. Oh my God, Iris.
I was gonna say Alexis, but I'm like, that ain't right.
Yeah,
but
close.
There's a lot of flashbacky stuff there in that one. And then she also wrote 2.10, The Last Light, which was the series finale, and that one she wrote again with Matt Negretti and then this guy named Carson Moore. So she's a big team writer. So I'm guessing that they bring her in to write, lots of stuff that involves the girls speak, because she's teamed up with a lot of boys. And I kind of, whenever I see that, I always think of John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wrote the screenplay for the original Halloween, and you go, wow, that's really cool. They collaborated on it. It's like, well, they did, but Carpenter wrote all of the Loomis stuff about evil and death is coming to your town and looking at the wall and not seeing the wall and all that really cool creepy stuff. And then Deborah Hill came in and she wrote all the girl talk between the 3 girl characters. So it's kind of I always think that when it's a team like that they usually will do stuff like that. And then Ben Sokolovsky, he, again, the episodes we mentioned that he wrote with her, he also wrote on World Beyond 1.4, which was The Blaze of Glory, which is the episode with the big tire fire or whatever it was that they go to that kind of bottlenecks the ghouls. And then he wrote, Deepest Cut and In This Life, which with her. And then in season 2, he wrote episode 2.5, which is a title we really loved. It was Quatre Voix. And
we certainly did.
We did. It was a cool title. And it and so that's the one where the Scooby Gang comes up with this cockamamie plan to rescue the dad, and so they sneak into the CRM and they go through the area where Silas was at that point had been working with those other kids, and they play the rock music, and that draws all the ghouls in, and they blow them up, and of course everything goes horribly wrong, and they all get caught at the end, or most of them get caught at the end, most of them, and so on. But so he wrote that one too, and that one he wrote by himself. And then our director is Ron Underwood, and unfortunately, like I said, all of his credits in Walking Dead are all, unfortunately, for Fear, so I'm sorry. But he wrote or directed episode 5.10, which was 210 words per minute, and that was the lovely Morgan and Grace at the shopping mall, where every mall in Texas apparently comes with an ultrasound machine. This is just standard info.
That doesn't happen in your mall?
That's true.
Duh.
No, I you know what? I've never asked, so maybe. But and then he wrote or directed 6.4, which was The Key. and that was where John Dory Jr. Investigates the death of another ranger, and ultimately, this is the ranger that Dakota kills, but it gets pinned on Janice, this character Janice, and she kind of gets fed to the ghouls. And he has this tooth is rotting, and he is suffering from that as well, and so on, whatever. And then he directed in season 7 he directed 7.3, and that was Cindy Hawkins, which is an episode that I actually kind of liked, where John Dory Sr. and June are in the bunker, and of course they find the corpse of another Teddy victim in a secret room, and he imagines that she's talking to him, and that whole thing.
Yep, I remember that.
And then he directed 7/12, which was entitled Sonny Boy, and that is the unfortunate episode where John Dory Sr. ends up dying getting Baby Mo out of the tower, if you remember that lovely story.
I really tried to emotionally block that one out, but, whatever.
Remember the awful singing with Grace and
yes,
him?
I remember all of it. All the awful singing, the most debasing outfit for a character to be wearing when he's killed.
He's wearing like the army helmet and like the breastplate and the catcher's mask and all that. It's so bad. And Morgan is just sitting there watching him like, wow, I should probably go help him.
I feel like I should be doing something here.
I should be, but I'm real good just standing here watching. But anyway, that was his credits. And then to Ron Underwood's credit, no pun intended, he has also directed a lot of other, really good shows in the rest of the TV universe. So I think all of these people have some chops, and they have some talent, and can turn out a good product. I just think, like kind of what we said, they just kind of missed a little on this one.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, and I think we can say that's the case on this one. Not terribly written, not terribly directed, not terribly, acted or whatever. Just like it just feels like they came right up to the line, and they almost touched the line, and then they just sort of retreated back. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, interesting. Thank you for all of that information about the writers and the director.
Sure.
So let's jump in. So before we get into any of the major sort of action of the episode, we get introduced to who we find out is Joe. And Joe appears to be what you would call a true, quote-unquote, I'm using my air quotes here, prepper. And I actually was really interested in the idea of showing a prepper, because the only other sort of these people exist, man. These people have bunkers, they're filled with stuff, they're ready, Oh
yeah.
And the only other instances where we've really seen this used was on Fear with on the ranch with all of the Otto family
and
there.
His sons, right.
Exactly, because they had everything in the basement there. But that was more of he was a prepper, but then everybody came there. It was more like a community, whereas a majority of the time, this is a singular thing, whether it's a person by themselves, like Joe, or like one guy who gets his family to do all this stuff. It's like one basement, one bunker, and it's basically like all the people out here are dumb that they're not prepared, and I'm prepared, and not only am I prepared, but I'm not going to share it with other people, let's be honest, because you were, and it seems like Joe was that kind of person. You were stupid enough to not be prepared. I'm smart enough that I was prepared. So I was excited about having like a sort of prepper's point of view. It was, and it was interesting, he had power, he had videotapes that he was watching kind of over and over. Obviously, he's a big Ohio State fan. Yeah. I don't really care about college football, so it doesn't matter one way or the other. It's funny because, strangely, later on he makes it clear that he's a fan of Ohio State. At first, I thought he was watching tapes of, like, old tapes of himself playing. Which I did too. Yeah, which I thought would have been interesting. You know, like, I got nothing else in the bunker, but I've got these videos that my mom took of me playing college ball years ago, you know, and this was my glory years or whatever. So I thought that would have been interesting, but no, they went with the fan angle. And I just, I wish we had sort of sat in the whole prepper world a little bit longer. We only sort of got a very thin slice of Joe. Mostly they set up, you know, he's a man of routine. You know, he does things a certain way. He wakes up and lets the dog out to pee, like, at a certain time. And, you know, he doesn't like to change his ways and all of that stuff. So it does set him up as, like, as a character that doesn't like to bend or change, so that it achieved that. I just wish I'd been able to be given a little bit more detail on the prepper stuff. What about you? What did you think of the sort of prepper angle?
I agree with you. I liked it because, you know, we really haven't seen it from this perspective. You know, usually in the main show or any of the other shows, when our characters come upon someone who you could term a prepper or close to it, they're always, you know, they're like Morgan and Clear or whatever. You know, they're already nutballs, you know. Yeah. And here we're seeing a guy who, you know, is pretty grounded and level-headed, and not, you know, I'm gonna, you know, kill you and use your shin as a pencil box kind of a thing, right? You know, I mean, he's just a guy that clearly is quite content to be by himself. And, you know, it kind of, you know, that you get the sense that he didn't really fit in the old world, right? You know, with people, right? And so he built the bunker, and then when the ZA started, he was like, great, this is what and I don't have to deal with any of these stupid people anymore, you know. What I really enjoyed was they kind of gave us like almost like a montage of him, you know, going to bed, and then every morning turning the light on or turning the light off or whatever, and you just, to me, I just got the sense of, we're just seeing that every day is the same. Every day is the same. He gets up, he works out, he, you know, like you said, he takes the dog out to pee. He then watches something on his TV, whether it's old Ohio State games or it's, you know, you have to assume he has something else maybe. But he watches TV, and then he, you know, eats dinner, and then he goes to bed, and then he gets up the next morning, does the same thing, and that's it. That's all he does, and that's all he has done. And there's a line in about the middle of the episode that it tells you that the end is about a year old. Yeah. So the ZA began about a year ago when this is taken. So just, again, put that in perspective to the main show, right? That means that, like, our heroes are, like, at the farm at that point. Right. Right? I mean, wouldn't that be it? Or maybe they're at the prison?
They're probably at the prison, because the farm was not too long after. Just like only a couple months, I think, at the most.
Okay. So, but anyway, just to kind of give you some perspective of when in the timeline this is taking place. But I just love that I got the sense that, okay, since the ZA started, this guy has been basically what we see him doing in that opening 5 or 6 minutes. He's done that every day. Yep. You know, and he seems quite happy. Yeah. And content. Yeah, right? He's fine with it. He's got it. Yeah, he's got everything he needs. And again, like you said, you know, the concept of a true prepper was really interesting to see, you know, because when he goes up to let the dog out, like, you can see his house is like right there behind him. Yep. But he doesn't live in his house. Nope. You know, so yeah, I thought that was it was an interesting kind of a new character to kind of show us, or a character like type. Almost, you know. Absolutely. You know, just to see this is someone who, you know, is not out looting, not out, you know, sort of, you know, scavenging for supplies. You know, basically, this guy would have been quite happy just to live out his life with his dog in the bunker for as long as he could. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's funny you said the thing where there was something said about a year. If you didn't catch it, there was a spot in like one of the montages where there's like a little slip of paper and it says like days since the world fell, and it was like 402 or something.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. So that puts it at about like, a year and a quarter when that shot was taken, and then obviously time moves on, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, can we discuss the stupidest dog death ever?
No, not Gilligan.
Not Gilligan. Because here's what I think.
He's our little buddy.
I knew as soon as they showed that Gilligan had wet in the bed with him, I was like, oh, they're going to show the dog dying, because, dogs only last so many years, and it would be interesting to see what it would be like. Here's this guy who's sort of like Twilight Zone with the guy in the library, and then he breaks his glasses and can't read any of them. Here's this guy who set up this whole thing to spend time with his quote-unquote best friend, and then if his best friend dies, then he's by himself, right? So I think that would...
Well, it is sort of the catalyst for the episode.
Absolutely. And I get it being the catalyst, as sad as it was, but what was stupid to me was you went through the trouble of setting up that Gilligan was getting older. You did the whole thing with him peeing in the bed, and that he literally, and you can see he's old because Joe has to carry him up the stairs to bring him outside to pee. And then they do the stupid zombie attack scene, and then Gilligan is killed by the zombie. And I just felt like that was so gratuitous and stupid. Why couldn't... and I get why they did it. Because they wanted to show the really cool contraption that he built with, like, the spikes that
the rakes
popped up.
and stuff.
Yeah, which was really cool. We've never seen anything like that before. And it was very interesting. But what if he had employed it while he was digging the grave for Gilligan? It didn't have to be Gilligan was killed by the zombies. And I agree with what you were saying. Now that we're sort of jumping back in, I agree with what you were saying too, that, they could have just been showing that he was old so that it was more believable that the dog was not able to get the best of the zombie. You know what I mean? Like the zombie killed it because it was old, right?
Yeah.
So I can see that as a justification, but I feel like you're already killing a dog in front of people. Let's make sure that the whole situation is clear. Let's not have any ambiguity about it, because everybody's going to get really fired up when they're like, oh, they killed a dog, and get very excited. I know I did. As soon as they showed that the dog was old, I was like, oh, we're going to see this dog die, aren't we?
Yeah.
To be fair, it just didn't happen in the way that I had sort of envisioned, I guess. So there's that.
Well, and like we said, I mean, it's the whole catalyst to get him out of the bunker.
Yeah. Gets him.
Because then we get the montage of him living in the bunker without the dog. And he's getting more and more frustrated. And, there's that scene where he's doing Sudoku, and he looks at Gilligan and goes, got to keep the mind fresh, and it's so funny because as soon as I saw that, all I could think of is you and that crazy Wordle crap.
Shut
up.
Like,
can't get away from it. And I'm just wondering, does Terry Crews turn to Gilligan and say, hey, I got it 5 out of 6?
Shut up.
I know. But anyway, so if you remember, there's that scene where he can't sleep, and then he grabs one of the Sudoku books and he throws it, and then he grabs his end table and throws that, and just kind of has that freak out moment where he's trashing his apartment or his bunker, and that gets him to pull out, for some reason he printed out the internet, right, because he's turning into one of his parents, and he like had the printouts of all of his conversations with this other person whose handle was "You should be scared." I think wasn't that her?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was her thing. And he kind of, we see him, and then of course we hear her voice for her parts, and we kind of get the idea that here was someone that he actually had a connection with.
Yeah.
Which you get the sense was probably not a lot of people would fall into that category. So. Mm-hmm. And so that then kind of convinces him to, I need to have someone, some other warm body, with me. And so I'm going to like load up the truck and go to Beverly to try and hunt this girl down. And so that kind of gets him out of the bunker. So, and there's even that moment when he's like sitting on the motorcycle and he's, all ready to go. And he's like, they're all dead and you survived. He's like, what the hell are you doing? And then he leaves.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So moving on from the dog death and his catalysts, let's start talking. You've got a couple of points there that sort of cover sort of the next section, which is really all around the motorcycle. Which I got to give. Yeah, and Evie, but you have some specific motorcycle questions, and I like them. What's interesting to me is I like that the motorcycle is set up as solar. So he retrofitted that motorcycle so that he wouldn't have to worry about gas, which is really smart. I've thought the same things. I'm like, there's got to be some way for people to like, have like electric cars or solar powered cars or something like solar powered something that can, get people to, go forward or, faster than walking and bikes. So anyway, so I liked the motorcycle, but there are some interesting things if you want to discuss your next couple of points there.
Yeah, and this is just more story plot issues. We get this. He's traveling. We see like they kind of give us the road signs of all the different cities in Ohio, right? As he's sort of traveling across the state, and you see Bowling Green and all that stuff. So it's sort of the Indiana Jones red line on the map type thing, which.
Yes.
But, first of all, I was really grateful because how many times on this show have the characters set out somewhere to go somewhere and you have no idea where they are, how far it took that, like when Eugene and his group left to go find, what's her name from the radio, how far away were, we had what city were they? We had no idea, it's like, come on, guys, give us a breadcrumb somewhere. And here, at least we could kind of track where he was, what route he was taking and where he was passing by and so on. But anyway, so we see that, and then he, it's a nighttime shot, and he basically drives the motorcycle over a set of like tire spikes that are set in the road. I mean, this was not like an accident, like someone put them out there on purpose. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, okay, did Evie do that? Is because she was looking to get, to basically steal someone's transportation so she could do her cockamamie mission? Or did somebody else do that? I mean, they never really explained that sequence at all. Because the next scene, he is like walking in the middle of the woods, not anywhere near a road or the motorcycle, and he gets caught in her net. Right. And that then we are introduced to Evie, and then they start talking and all this stuff happens, and so she basically at one point, he's duct taped to the chair, which was beautiful. I really liked that, like a whole roll of duct tape going around that dude's shoulders because he's so freaking massive. Right. And she basically is like, well, I'm going to take your motorcycle because I need to go somewhere. And, once I'm gone, you'll be able to get out and you can stay here or whatever. And he said, nope, you won't be able to start it. And so she's like, what, you don't think because I have 2 X chromosomes, I can't ride a hog? And she has a great line of, I've had worse things between my legs. That was a fun line.
Yeah, it was.
I thought there was some really fun little zingers between the two of them. They had some nice interplay in there. But he then kind of gets on his high horse and says it has a special kill switch that you'll never be able to figure out. And my thought was, it also has 3 flat tires that,
right.
How are you going to fix them? Right.
Right.
And they never went back to that. It's just the tires, I guess, are reinflatable or something because they were magically repaired. We never found out.
Those 2 questions that you have, very valid. I just assumed, because the way Evie talked about once she got him, once he woke up and she started explaining stuff and she was like, oh, I'm so glad you came along. I just assumed she set out the road spikes, that she must have like sets at different points, and then not far from those locations, those folks would be like, oh, I need to get off the road. And then she catches them in these nets wherever they are. I just assumed that she set the road spikes. I was okay with that. And
okay.
And like, just for me, and for the flat tires, I never thought about it again, because I just assumed, because Joe is such a prepper and he's like got everything all outfitted, like he of course has like 3 extra like tires.
Spares.
Yeah, but he's got them in the sidecar because he doesn't need the sidecar because he's alone. So he takes them out and changes them, and we just don't see that scene. I just assumed that he had some kind of spare, or like maybe a patching kit or something like that, and then a pump. Okay. Who knows?
Again, I mean, I think all of those are valid. It would just been nice for them to at least have a line of dialogue explaining, well, we're going to have to fix the tires first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all it would have taken. It's not would have been a big fix. It just really kind of threw me, because I'm like, what happened? Because when he first said, well, you won't be able to drive it, and then she had that line about, what do you think, I can't handle a hog because I'm a girl. I was really expecting him to be like, well, it has 3 flat tires thanks to you or something. And he didn't. He went totally away. I'm like, what about the tires? So it just stuck out in my mind. I'm like, well, wait a minute. That doesn't work out in my head. Somehow they have to fix those, right? But whatever.
In theory, yes.
Yeah. But I loved it when he gets in the net. When she catches him, and she gets the knife out of his boot, and she has some line in there like, oh, you couldn't reach it, huh? I said, spent too much time lifting weights and not working on your core. And he's like, my core is fine.
That was a funny line. They did a good job there.
Oh yeah, and again, I think both of these actors have great comic chops.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've noticed this, but this is an observation that I've made, is that actors that can do comedy can do drama. Yeah. And it's not necessarily the other way. You know what I mean? Like, actors that are really good at drama sometimes can't do comedy. But for the most part, actors that can do comedy, they can handle the heavy stuff too. And I think both of these 2 actors are really good at comedy. And when they got their little banter going for the rest of this episode, there were moments where they were very amusing and fun, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of the few things that was, I thought, really well done. I thought they had good chemistry, and they both were able to sort of handle, like you said, just those little comedic elements here and there, which I thought were good. But yeah, like those 2 moments, the road spikes and the flat tires, like, to me, they didn't bother me, but I totally can see how it could pull someone out of the moment, like later on, and just be like, wait, what?
Yeah. I'm like, what happened to the tires? you know, so.
Exactly.
And then the only other thing that I had from that sequence is when he's in the piñata, she like throws the handcuffs in, and she's like, put them on and I'll cut you down. And he's like, no. And then she has this line of, cuffed and sheltered or human piñata, your choice.
Yeah, that's, who doesn't want to be a human piñata,
I know, human piñatas are awesome.
And that means you're filled with candy. Yeah, exactly. So obviously they go on the buddy road trip that we didn't know that we needed, I guess.
Right. Or wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get more of the postcards coming across the screen, like the montage that they're making good time, they're making distance, and then it's clear.
They get into Michigan.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, they leave Ohio and they go into Michigan, and we kind of get a little bit of them, like sitting around the campfire, and we find out a little bit more about her. We find out a little bit more about him, and she still doesn't trust him. Right. He's always cuffed, and he, what doesn't happen at first, like she wants to like talk, and he like puts his earbuds in and his turns the music up, and it's just like, I'm not going to talk to you, And,
yeah, exactly.
And so they do a lot of that, and we sort of, again, it's sort of like the bonding thing, right? They start finding out that there are things about each other that they don't like and other things that they do like, and there's the inevitable scene where they have to fight off a bunch of ghouls, and so she has to trust him, and they work together as a team, and so you get all this stuff, and at the same time, we also find out, she tells her tragic story about her, ex-husband or boyfriend, and why she is out leaving and out looking for him, and then Joe eventually comes clean with his story about he's looking for You Should Be Scared, because she's the person that he connected with, and so on. And so again, we were developing their relationship, which I liked. I just thought it was way too much of the episode. Yeah,
exactly. I did like some of the, like you said, I liked some of the bonding. And I like how they sort of treated once she realized how much he was hurting and how private he was, when she treats it with respect, and then you see the change when he hands over like the book that had all the printouts, because at first he was very protective, but then when he does eventually give it to her to read, that's like a shift in their sort of budding friendship, as it were. So I thought that was expected, like that was a plot point I was expecting to happen, but it was still played really nicely as it was happening. So there's that. They do eventually have to Amscray because he, and you knew as soon as it happened, he sets the motorcycle, he starts the motorcycle, and then she's like, come and look at this, and he's like, he doesn't want to leave the motorcycle running, but he does. And then of course it gets stolen, and I love that they left a goat behind. But what is
the Judas
that?
Goat.
Here you go. I'll give you something to eat, but I'm taking your motorcycle. So that was of course another thing that was kind of like expected. That's definitely a plot point you were expecting, along with the things like what's it called? That the gun never had any bullets in it, and those sort of those things that you knew were going to happen. But I wanted to point out something that was bothersome to me, is that right before the motorcycle does get taken, he's all thinking positive, they're buddies now, and he's like, I looked on the map and da da da. It's the rest of the journey will probably only take us about another 12 hours. We're almost there. And then not long, then the motorcycle gets taken, and then it doesn't feel like it took very much longer. It felt like it only took them like a day to get, and yes, there was a point where they split, etc. But they didn't even show them sort of hunkering down for the night or anything. It's just like, we're walking along, we hate each other because we screwed up, and now we don't have the motorcycle. And now
gear.
Yeah, and now I have to carry this goat just to make sure he won't eat it. And
right, because he wants to eat it, and she's like, hell no.
Yeah, she's like, I'm saving this goat from death. So they have their whole like, I hate you as they're walking along. They do eventually split up, but doesn't it feel like when Joe comes upon that woman's house and bunker area, that it's like that night. And if it wasn't supposed to be late, and if it wasn't supposed to be like later that same day, they didn't do a very good job of showing the passage of time. So you can't go from a scene that says it's going to take us 12 hours in a motorcycle and then put those people on foot and without any supplies, and then just be like, the very next thing we're going to show is darkness, and it's going to feel like they got there like that, you know? So I just thought that was kind of disappointing. It just needed like a quick montage of showing them like, you know, hunkering down next to a really sad fire with like not talking to each other, and doing that like once or twice. And then I would have been more believable. But, you know, I know you only have so much time to do so many things.
I think that you just got to chalk that up to, you know, movie or TV magic. And, you know, they fast traveled, right? I mean, they got there and just right. And again, for all we know, maybe there's a scene that is in the cutting room floor that is them being miserable, you know, sitting next to, whether they could start a fire or not. They're just sort of like sitting there huddling in the cold, not talking to each other because they're pissed. You know what I mean? Maybe there is, and it just got cut for time or something. You know, again, you never know. But yeah, I definitely got that same feeling of, because he's like, with the bike, we'll be there in 12 hours. And then they don't have the bike. And then it's like they get there in an hour.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, because it's still light.
Yeah.
For most of that scene, right? Like when he gets to the bunker, it's still light out.
Yeah.
You know, and then when she shows up later on, then it's dark. But when he gets there, the sun is still up. So yeah, you're right. There is kind of that. How much time has passed? You know, now he says he's really hungry, so maybe it was a couple days that he was just out walking, and this is just, you know, whatever. We don't know. Again, it's a little bit lazy writing. As far as the motorcycle getting stolen, as soon as he started it and then got off and didn't turn it off, I was just like, that was bad. Yeah. I mean, it was just telegraphed. You're like, okay, the motorcycle's leaving now.
Yeah.
You know,
say bye-bye.
And yeah, you know, and it struck me as totally out of character for him that he would leave it running.
Yeah.
You know, he wouldn't. He would turn it off and go in and see what she wanted. Now, she had very important information, because remember, she was reading the transcripts and she picked out the bit that the girl had mentioned, the vegan donut shop that's nearby. And she's like, oh my God, I think I know that donut shop, right? And they'd already established that where she's going, it was like within 10 miles of where he thought the girl was already. Right. And so he was hoping to use her knowledge of the area to begin with. And this was just sort of confirmation of that, because she's like, hey, I've been reading this, and oh my God, I think I know where close enough where she is where you could search and have a realistic chance of finding her house. And remember, he had a picture of her house, so he knew what the house looked like, because remember, he helped her buy the tractor.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a picture of her, you know. Yeah. So, but I think it was a legitimate reason for her to call him in there. I just thought, I'm like, no, he would have turned off that motorcycle and gone in, because it's just sitting out there, you know. And that was the other thing. They were in a big freaking warehouse. Why didn't they bring the motorcycle in at night?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, you know. So again, it's little things, but yeah, that moment bothered me probably the most, was the motorcycle getting stolen. I just thought that just didn't ring true to me at all.
Yeah, especially not for what they had set up for who Joe was and what he was all about. Yeah. We'll get to obviously all the stuff with Joe at his location is like one of the main plot points of the episode. So let's talk a little bit about Evie's moment at her cabin that she went to, because they both miraculously make it in one piece to the places they needed to get to, strangely enough. But Evie's is just a quick moment, so we can sort of do that and be done with it. But
first of all, I think we have to acknowledge, okay, I am Olivia Munn's ex. Hello.
And why is that?
Because her ex's name is Steve.
Oh
Hello.
My God.
I was just sitting, I'm like, oh, You know, I don't know what Alicia's gonna say about that, but all right, Olivia Munn, I like that. You know,
look at you, look at you making your way through the Walking Dead universe, ladies.
The Walking Dead women, they have no shot. Yeah, no, I just kind of chuckled at that when it came out that Steve was her ex. So yeah, and her whole thing is he developed this way to deal with like stress and anger by what she called hatin' painting.
Yep.
And that is, someone annoys you or pisses you off, you paint their picture, and the act of doing that will help, get a lot of your aggression out or something. Mm-hmm. And so she has decided that since they ended really badly before the ZA, that she needs to go to, because when he left, he was going to go to like the family cabin or somewhere, and she knew where that was. She wants to go there because she wants to see if he ever painted her picture as a hatin' painting, because that really would bother her, because she felt like she cared for him. And again, they kind of ended on a bad note, but that was like the exception. Most of the time they were really good together, and she would just really bugged her that, she had to know, did he hate her, and so that was kind of her motivation. So go ahead, continue.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that out of the two interactions that happened, I felt like hers was much more realistic to what would really happen. Mm-hmm. It looks like he was there for at least a period of time. It's kind of unclear, like, is he still there? It doesn't look like the cabin's been touched, but there's also nobody there. But it's not like there's like half-eaten plates there and he had to leave in a hurry. Like, it's just he was there, obviously, mm-hmm. and he just wasn't there when she went there, whether he's alive or dead.
Yeah.
But she did find a painting of herself there.
Did.
And I just thought that in a world where where, especially in this anthology series where we're going to be much more liable to get things sort of tied up in a bow at the end, because mm-hmm. we're not going to see these people again. I liked that hers was more realistic. It was more ambiguous. We don't know anything about what happened to Steve. All we know is that he did show up there. He did paint that painting. And those mm-hmm. were the only relevant points about him in terms of, Evie's growth as a character or whatever. And I just thought that was really... No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when she comes in and she finds there's like a whole series of paintings, like 3 or 4 of them that are leaning up against the wall. Mm-hmm. And she looks at the first 3, and apparently he had written on the paintings with some of the paint, like the first one, the first 3 are all of boys. They're all guys. Yeah. And the first one, she's like, hated. And then she goes to the next one and she reads and she goes, hated. And then the third one, hated. And then she goes, and the last one is a picture of her. And she looks at it and she instead of saying hated, she says loved. And so that kind of gives her the positive ending, because not only did she, find the cabin and see, if he ever got there, but, yes, he did. And he painted her, but he painted her picture, and it was not because he was hating painting, it's because he loved her.
Yeah.
So she gets a very, very, kind of happy resolution, except for the fact of whatever happened to him.
Exactly. So even though there's some happy feeling there, I like that there's still a lot of ambiguity there. Mm-hmm. Because, more often than not, we do get, it's either a tragic ending and we're going to give you like what the answers to all the questions are, or it's a happy ending and, he's going to come running in and like, oh, I can't believe you're here and whatever. And they didn't give us either one of those things. We don't mm-hmm. know what happened to him. And since we're never going to see these people again, we're never going to know what happened to Steve. And you know what? That's okay. And I
don't know, that kind of bothers me.
Yeah. I mean, I know what happens to you, but I don't know what happens to Evie's Stevie.
See, I see what you did there. I think actually, you know what? It's obvious if you think about it. What happened to Steve? Steve is sitting in the car babysitting.
Yeah. Always the babysitter.
Who's the babysitter?
I just think that like I like when there's ambiguous endings.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
to be able to have elements that I have to go, ooh, this could have happened, or that could have happened, or this could have happened. And for a lot of this sort of episodic drama that we're used to with the Walking Dead universe, things are sort of spelled out for you, and they're given like, endings, whether they're messy endings or neat endings, whatever, but there's literally no ending. And I like that they're okay with doing that, because then that bodes well for the future. I don't
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that I think is going to be most interesting about the anthology series, is exactly that, which is I like having those ambiguous endings, so it's perfectly fine with me to not
Oh
know
yeah,
what happened to this guy. It's
yeah.
perfectly fine with me. So
And
keep doing that, writers.
well, and again, the way that they dress that set when she comes in. Okay, first of all, the cabin, it's not overrun. The windows aren't all broken out, right?
Mm-hmm.
The door is still on the hinges, but the door's not locked,
Right.
right? She just opens it up. But when she comes in, like you said, there isn't like a half-eaten meal on the table that clearly something happened and he got up and ran away, right? It, but again, stuff isn't in disarray. Stuff seems to be reasonably put away. I mean, it's not
Mm-hmm.
completely spotless, but it's not like it's a mess and it got torn apart and there was a fight and a struggle. And so, like you said, there's no visual clues as to what happened to him. He's just gone.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of have to be. I mean, that's how they wrote it, but I think that that's going to separate the people that will enjoy a majority of this series, and those that it's not for them. Like, if you're the kind of person that needs those neat endings, or if you want to know, if you don't like that ambiguity, then you might not like these episodes. But I as much as like this wasn't like a total thumbs up for me, this episode, I did love that they took a risk and did this, which I want to see more of in the series. So we covered Evie's cabin discovery for her. So let's cover Joe's discovery as well.
Joe.
Joe.
Joe. I tell you.
Can we talk about how the two male characters are Joe and Steve?
I know. Oh, I thought you already picked up on that. Yeah, I was right away. I'm like, oh my God, it's Joe and Steve.
Oh, God, you knuckleheads. Anyway, so
for those people who don't get that joke, the voice you hear in our intro is my best friend and business partner Joe, and so he was kind enough to record that for us. So yes, that is the Joe and Steve. I have been part of a Joe and Steve team for a long time.
yeah, very, very long time, and it just it literally, you know why? Because it didn't hit me that the guy's name was Steve. So that's why I didn't do the Joe and Steve until literally
I get you.
now.
I get you.
So let's talk about, as soon as those doors opened and she was like, come on in.
Well, he tries to climb down, remember, and he falls and he hurts his knee.
Yeah. I immediately was like, this is weird. And a lot of it had to do with how amazing her prep area was. Like her bunker was like, there's these like space age lights. It literally was like telling you you're in a different world. So I was immediately on guard. I'm like, something's off here. This is I immediately was like, something's weird. And I hate to say that I was right, but I was right. But I also didn't like the twist. What did you think about the twist of the crazy woman?
Okay, I was fine with it. I had no problem with it. It didn't. I mean, if she would have been, completely normal, I guess it would have fit in with the rest of the story, and like, well, that figures because nothing else happened on this story, you know, so why would it happen at the end? But I was okay with it, and I think, you know, the actor who played Sandra, which is that character's real name, I thought she had a lot of fun with it, and I loved the makeup, and I mean, oh my God, the Buddy Holly song that she's playing over and over and over again. It's this really short song. It's like under 2 minutes, and it's called Dearest. And I mean, literally, it is a story about like, you know, love lost, you know, like this. The person singing the song is begging this other person to please come back to them, and they're sorry. I mean, it's perfect for her, right? I mean, it just fits. And then she tells that great story about, you know, she played the music to drown out the people that were banging on the door to let them in. And then finally a guy got in, and, you know, and she's like, you know, almost like Kathy Bates in Misery, like, was he there to help me? I don't think so, you know, and she, right. And she's like, so I killed him. And of course, Terry Crews Joe is like, well, yeah, that's understandable. You know, he breaks into your thing. And then she's like, but I really liked his watch, so I kept it. and then it cuts to that like watch display, and she's got like 12 of them, right?
And you're like,
you know?
oh, no, this is bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah, right. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So I was okay with it. I thought they had a lot of fun with it. And of course, she gives him the brownie. And okay, is that not like Apocalypse 101, that when a strange person you've just met hands you like some sort of baked good that's clearly not out of a can or a MRE, you don't eat it, right?
Yeah, totally. And sadly, he's coming from a place of hunger because he was traveling for, you know, once they lost the motorcycle, it was like 1 to 15 days. We don't really know.
Right. We know.
We can't gauge his actual hunger level, but he is a built guy, and those kind of dudes need protein intake like every so few hours.
Oh boy, yep.
Yeah, so
eat repeatedly.
Gotta eat. So that's another instance where I feel like he let his guard down in a way that I'm not sure he would have in any regular circumstance, you know?
Well, the only thing you can say is that he felt there was already a relationship there.
Yes, a connection,
you know, because
for sure.
of their and so he had already felt there was trust. And, you know, yeah, she isn't going to hurt me. I mean, you know, I'm the guy that we talked with. You know, we had this digital connection, right? She asked to meet him in the real world in the transcripts, you know?
Yep.
And I think actually that was probably where, you know, the I'm going to kill you if I ever find you vibe started from her, because she offered to meet him and he said no. If you remember.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, you know, oh, it's a great idea, but like in the real world, I don't know, you know. And he was just being innocent about it, but, you know, again, there's something cray-cray about that girl, so, you know, it's totally possible that, you know, that was the beginning of, well, clearly you're just like all the other ones.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was okay with it. I know, you know, that you did not appreciate the twist that she went all Fatal Attraction on him, but I thought it was a lot of fun. And you know, didn't you kind of think that it was that the two of them were gonna, if they survived, they were gonna be together, right? And I mean Evie and Joe. So she couldn't be in the picture.
Yeah, but I saw them more as like buddies. I didn't see there being any like love chemistry.
Oh, no romance.
No,
okay.
not really. And that doesn't mean it couldn't have happened. I'm just saying, like, it didn't strike me as that way, at least not right away. I don't know what I expected from Sandra, was her name?
Sandra is the other girl, the prepper, yeah.
Yeah, the girl prepper. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but the level it went to was like, I mean, she like literally like the Joker went to the mirror and put on makeup and all of like those little extras. I was
so
like,
great. And then when Olivia Munn shows up and the sensor goes off and she goes to the mirror and she kind of checks her hair and stuff. I loved it. I'm like, oh my God, that actor had to have so much fun just chewing the scenery all over.
I will say there's one thing that if you were paying attention, I knew as soon as she gave the brownie to Evie that that's what was going to break it up, because Evie made a comment to Joe when she was trying to, sell her place as a great place for him to be, because her original plan was to take the motorcycle and go and leave him behind. And she was like, we've got like organic gardening out there and da-da-da-da. You'll be fine staying here. Bye-bye. And she made some comment about how they have weed plants too. So obviously she's a smoker, and most people, if they grow their own, will use it in their cooking as well, which I'm sure happened as well. So there's no mistaking when you put drugs in the, you know what I mean? And if that's what you put into there. So it's like,
and how do you know this, Diana?
I don't, but I've heard many stories. So, yes, okay. So in this instance, I was totally expecting Evie to suss out the brownie situation. And I did like how she did it, where she was like, it's bad form to not ask permission. And I was like, she's really not really caring about your permission. And we'll get to that. But it's nice that there was something built in. It was sort of like, Chekhov's gun way back in the beginning. So it did pay off, and I appreciated that. So I liked that Evie's reaction worked out well. Also, the whole, like, I know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or some crazy martial art thing, which helped her really, kick Sandra's ass.
Oh man, they kill her very painfully.
Yes. Yes, she's done for in a nice way. I do want to say, do you have anything else you want to talk about with the, Joe being captive and the fight to get him released? Because if not, I'm jumping to the end of it.
Oh, I did like when he gets into the bunker and she gives him the brownie and he takes a bite of it. And when I watched it the second time, I kind of got the sense that he knew something was up with the brownie, because he even says, like, wow, this is really strong. And I'm wondering if maybe she gave him the brownie, at least told him the brownie will help with the pain in his knee, because his knee is like, she has to like help him, get to the chair. But in any case, he says that, like, wow, it's kind of strong. And then she has this great line where she goes, it's not Betty Crocker's. And it's just kind of like, dude, put the brownie down, man. What are you doing? I mean, I thought that was a lot of fun. And about her bunker being so elaborate, right? Like you were saying that, you when you get in her bunker, it looks a way different than his bunker. Her bunker has high ceilings and all this craziness, right? And she in the transcripts, she has a line in there about how she opted for like the platinum level of bunker, and she didn't know how her husband was going to take it at the time. And so that kind of explains, okay, she like sunk serious dough into that thing, whereas he did not spend the same amount, and that's why they're kind of different in appearance and whatnot. But the only other thing is that I thought was just fun was when after the motorcycle's stolen, there's a scene where they're walking on like these train tracks, and they're kind of, this is where they have their falling out right before they split up. And he basically has it out with her and tells her she's a horrible person and everything. And then he kind of says, your ex like did hating paintings of people he didn't like. I'm guessing that, he probably painted you because his impression of you was probably right. He goes, I'm on Team Steve here.
Yeah, that was a good line.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of fun. But that was really as far as everything leading up to that. So they, she shows up, she jinjitsus Sandra, and then I think he throws the meat cleaver at her and gets her right in the chest, right? But did you think it was a little weird that they didn't put her down? That if you're a year into the apocalypse, and again, they're not out and about, but they have to have some experience with the dead to know that, hey, you know what, if you die, you're going to come back as a ghoul relatively quickly. And they didn't bother to just, do the very easy to go through someone's skull with a knife thing that they always do on the main show. I thought that was a little odd. I'm like, why didn't you guys do that? Because remember, then they're trying to get him up the ladder, and of course the ghoul version of Sandra is like coming at them, and they just barely get away before she gets there. So I don't know. Did that bother you at all?
A little bit. I mean, I chalk it up to when people are in that sort of like stressful situation. As soon as they get out of the stressful situation, you sort of forget like your bearings and what just happened. You're sort of like, oh my God, I survived. And you're like drinking that moment in for a few minutes and, trying to assess everything else. And they, as far as they know, they took care of her for now. And then like the next step they just forgot to do, which, considering the stress of the situation, plus he's still kind of drugged up too. So it didn't bother me in my watching of it. It didn't. And of course it gave them sort of like the impetus to like, oh my God, we have to get out. Yeah. So it didn't bother me. Not really.
Okay.
So, yeah. What did bother me though?
Yes. And this bothered me too.
Yes. I don't, we watch all of these shows. We watch all of these different groups of people. And if it's one thing I always appreciate is, if, you see people, they're like, hey, grab that thing, that's useful. Grab this, that's useful, or whatever.
Yeah, right.
I always think back to, remember the episodes where Daryl and Beth were on their own after the fall of the prison, and they were sort of on their own walking around. They're in the golf
course for a while.
Yeah. And before they made it to the golf course, there was this one night where they spent the night sleeping in the trunk of a car just to stay away from the ghouls. It was the only way they could, stay completely away. And when they woke up and they moved on from there, they literally grabbed like a trash bag and grabbed a couple of things that could have been useful for whatever reason. Like literally Beth picked up like the side mirror, which was broken off from the car, because you could use that to sort of signal or whatever, or you can use it to like make a fire because you can direct the sunlight down onto like, you know what I mean? Like there's a couple of different things you could use, and she knew it was a useful item, and she put it, there was a trash bag, she put it in there, and they went away. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of stuff I like to see is, for me, my thing that always bothers me is if I were scavenging, why aren't you checking the pockets of every zombie that you put down?
Exactly. Yeah.
Someone's going to have a book of matches. Someone's going to have like a lighter maybe, or maybe someone's got a pocket knife, or whatever it may be. Who knows? Yeah. Someone could have been a construction worker, and they could have a pocket full of screws or nails or something. All items that you would need. These are all helpful things. I never understand. I would be fleecing everybody before you like set a pile on fire or dig a big mass grave and throw them in or whatever. I'd never understood why they don't do that. But anyway, so taking that,
what it is, it's the action movie. Why we never see the heroes reload is
exactly.
that it just takes time, and they don't, the movie makers, the people that are making the entertainment don't want to spend time showing the guys reloading. They don't want to show the heroes stripping corpses, which again, you would in the real, if it was really happening, every place you would go to, every building you're in, every car you go by, everything, you check everything, right? Like you said, because you never know. You never know what you're going to find. And these people on all these shows never do it.
Yeah, never. It was only that I always think of that one scene with Beth and Daryl. I think it was so realistic. They had nothing, and you'd look at that and go, what are you going to use that for? And then they use it for a couple of things, and you're like, oh, they're so resourceful. Oh. They saw this, and they knew I can use this for something. Because something is better than nothing, which is what we had. So what bothers me is we set up this prepper person who has an unlimited supply of all of this stuff in there.
Right.
And I can understand to a degree not wanting to maybe stay there because, this is where the crazy woman attacked us and, but wouldn't you, even if you decide, hey, I don't want to stay here, let's get out of here, wouldn't you at least be like, okay, let's grab a bag and fill it with some stuff so that we've got some supplies for the road? Nope. Absolutely not. We're gonna walk away. And I find that hard to believe because Joe's a prepper. Wouldn't he be like, I just don't understand. He would be the first person to be like, before we go, let's take up, we can't take a lot because we can't carry a lot. But I bet she's got like MREs or something like that because we talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go into that pantry, grab some stuff, and let's also grab a couple of knives from her kitchen collection, and then let's go. And then they'd be fine. I'd be okay with that. But they left with nothing.
That's the big thing is that it'd be one thing if the motorcycle was outside and they had all of their stuff, but they literally have nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And they left all of that. And it's just like, really? It's just, I agree. I mean, it's, it was definitely a puzzling choice, right? That here you have, first of all, I guess it's not that surprising when you consider that these two writers wrote the Morgan and Grace find the shopping mall full of stuff and just walk away from it. Right. So clearly this is a formula that they like to employ because they've done it before. But again, I know I've said this multiple times, but part of it for me that when this kind of stuff works, whether it's a horror movie or an action movie or an apocalyptic movie, is the characters, for me, they have to make decisions that at least I could go, I could see doing that. It has to be at least a chance of something that I would do in that circumstance. And every time on this in this universe, or most of the time, they make these decisions. I'm like you said, what are you doing? There's a pantry full of food. She probably has a locker with guns and ammunition. I mean, everything you need is right there. Why would you just give it up right away?
Yeah, exactly. If anything, you keep that as a home base until we don't want to stay here, but we have to get a new set of wheels. So why don't we hunker down here until we can find a different set of wheels and get out of here? Because everything we would need would be right here. So it's funny because as soon as they killed her and they both had their moment of whatever, are you okay? Are you whatever? I honestly, in my head, was like, well, hilarious, because he gave up his prepper spot and he lost his motorcycle, so he can't get back to his place where all of his stuff is waiting for him. So here was this other location that was sort of presented to him, and he and Evie can just stay there. It was my first thought as soon as she died. I was like, well, that's the end of the episode. Evie and Joe are going to take her spot and stay there. And it just didn't do that at all. And again, I appreciate that the ambiguous ending would be, we're going to go off into the wilderness and do whatever, and you're never going to see these two people again. But if they had done it with some backpacks filled with stuff, I would have liked it a lot better. You'd be like, okay, that's a logical choice. Yeah, how dare I ask for logic?
See, again, are you asking for that much?
No,
because
I don't think
again,
so.
If the characters, for like a drama or like a romantic comedy or something, or just a regular comedy, again, that it doesn't really apply because usually those are ridiculous situations and so on. Not that a zombie apocalypse isn't ridiculous, but for the horror movies, for the action movies, for these kind of movies where the characters' lives are in jeopardy a lot more than those other kind of movies, I always am like, for me, a mark of a really good movie or story is when the characters do things that are reasonable and, decisions that you could go, yeah, I that's what I would do,
Mm-hmm.
And again, if we can see she has a bunker full of stuff, why can't they see it?
Right.
So,
and if anybody's going to see it, Joe's going to see it. He knows she has a bunker full of stuff.
Yeah, so I don't think you're asking too much. I don't think that you this is a grab my stars and garters type moment of how dare you expect them to. No, I think this is it's disappointing because they should see it. Exactly.
Anything else that we need to cover that we haven't hit upon in your notes? I'm taking a peek through mine. I think I hit all of my things I wanted to chat about.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I really loved when they get attacked. One of their campfires, a bunch of ghouls show up, and one of them has got this massive hole in his chest.
Oh,
like
yeah.
You can see right through it. And like basically, I refer to it as the heartless ghoul.
Mm-hmm.
And when they put it down, she has the line of like, I really hope that whoever took his heart out did it after they turned.
Yes.
That wasn't how they died, right? And again, she's very hippie, crunchy granola eating, tree hugger type person, and right when she kills a ghoul, she says, "May your next life be peaceful," or whatever. She had some line that she would say to the dearly departed. And anyway, I really liked that ghoul. I thought that was a cool effect, practical effect for them. I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I agree. It was. There have been times before where they've had like a hole or something in a Zed, and you see like the world behind the zombie because of whatever's like piercing through them. So we've seen them do versions of that before, but this was a really, really cool way to showcase that. Yeah, very interesting. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our thoughts on the different points of the episode. We are going to go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and everything that's coming up on the podcast.
So, whatever you do, stick around because we'll be right back.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man off bed and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned
Toxic
over.
Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiances, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from DriveThruRPG.com or ToxicBag.com.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a weekly podcast covering the hit AMC programs The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the latest episodes. Aim for the Head, available on iTunes. You can also follow them on Facebook.
Hey there, this is Greg Nicotero, and you're listening to Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots, they really just don't work.
Greg Nicotero, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and an absolute sweetheart to have recorded that for us. Thank you, sir. Oh, hey everybody, we're back. We are going to go ahead and jump into the listener feedback that we received for this episode of The Walking Dead, Tales of the Walking Dead, episode 1 of season 1, Evie/Joe. Steve, why don't you get started and we will go back and forth.
All right, we did. We got a lot of feedback, so this
Sure
is
did.
awesome. Thank you guys so much for posting, writing, or carrier pigeoning this over. It's amazeballs. We love it. Keep it up, please. And our first we do. It's so great because then it's not a monologue. It is suddenly a dialogue. See what I did there? All right, so here we go. So we started off with our good old pal Barry Pettis, and this came via the Facebook. So hello, Barry. How are you?
Hey, Barry.
And he says, meh, a decent show, but as an anthology, it's kind of like meeting someone you want to get with, but they are gone now, and you will not see them again. So, and I think the beginning, I agree with him with the meh in that, you know, it wasn't a terrible episode. It wasn't great. It's meh.
Yeah, I agree with what you said earlier, that it's interesting that this is the one that they chose to start with. That's all. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But like you pointed out, you know, at the very beginning too, you know, great cast, right? Both of them are good. We like them. Where they're good at what they can, you know, what they do. You know, you've got the incredible production team, so it looks amazing. So there's so many things about this episode that it should have been great. Just for whatever reason, it just wasn't, right? I don't. You're like, because you get done with it and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that was okay. Yeah, definitely one of those ones that on paper it seemed like I don't want to say a slam dunk, but it seemed like a real strong episode. But then, you know, in actuality and in actual practice, it just didn't hit all the marks that I think that they were trying to hit. Yeah. Again, it's and like I said, it's an anthology, and you know, like from my experience with anthologies, there's going to be a fairly decent percentage of them that just don't work for me. That I'm just like, okay, that's fine. And Creepshow is the example I go to, and that there's a lot of episodes of Creepshow where it gets done, and I'm like, all right, you know. But then every once in a while, one comes along, like the one with Judith. Which is in season 1. It's with this dollhouse, and it is freaking awesome. And you're like, oh yeah, you know. And that's what's great about the anthology. So anyway, let's continue. All right, continuing on. Next up, we got some feedback from Danielle Dement Juiced. Hey Danielle, I know that Danielle is she's a frequent commenter on some of the Podcastica shows with Jason. So Danielle, thanks so much for giving us your thoughts on the show. Hope you get a chance to listen into the podcast as well. So here's what Danielle had to say. She says, I enjoyed it for the most part. I always enjoy Olivia Munn. Agreed. It was a bit campy at times. I also thought they would stay in the ladies' bunker, at least for a bit, but they just turned around and headed home immediately, which seemed a bit odd. Yes, we agree. We agree. All in all, the show was pretty good and has potential to be really enjoyable, so I'll keep watching. And I agree with you there, Danielle. I mean, we're not like writing this off by any means. Like Steve said, like kind of like a batting average. Your percentage with an anthology series may not hit the mark on all of them, but there's still some really good potential here. And I know they've got some really great actors for some of the rest of them. So I'm still very hopeful. So it sounds like you are too. So that's great. So thanks so much, Danielle, for writing in. We appreciate that.
Yeah, that's so cool. The cross-pollination. I love it.
I love it.
All right, so moving on, we got our next piece of feedback, and this was also via the Facebook, and this was from Michelle, and I want to say her last name is Smola, you think? Smola?
Sure.
I hope I'm not butchering it, Michelle. Well, let's go with Smola. Michelle Smola. This is via Facebook, and it was short and sweet and to the point, and she just said, love it, and she left a little heart emoji, so... Clearly, this episode, was she enjoyed it, I think, a tick more than we did.
Yeah. I'd say, Michelle, next time, let us know if you write in again, let us know what you loved about it. Because, like we said, there were some things that we took issue with. Maybe there were some things that you loved that we could look at from a different perspective. But I'm glad you loved it. That's awesome.
That is cool.
Yeah, another short but sweet. Our pal Patrick Manley left us a message via Twitter, and he obviously liked it as well. He says, great show tonight. So another person who was another satisfied customer.
Yeah, again, I think it isn't it like refreshing to have a Walking Dead universe show where the feedback is, you know what, I really like this episode. I mean, let's be honest, we didn't get a lot of that recently.
Yeah, I maybe that's why I'm like, it's weird. Like I Michelle, send in as much feedback as you want or don't want. Just say love it, hate it, whatever. Don't listen to me.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's having a hard time dealing with someone saying they love it because we haven't heard that in so freaking long.
I know.
Yeah, so don't listen to me, Michelle. You loved it. You loved it. That's all you gotta say. I'm just still struggling with the words love used with a Walking Dead vehicle because, like we said, it's as what's the band is Incubus said, it's been a while. Anyway, so Michelle loved it.
Wow,
Patrick loved it.
Nice pull with the Incubus reference.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, come on, 90s. Let's go. So some nice short pieces of feedback, and next up, a nice longer one for you, sir.
That's right. This next one comes from our pal Amelia from the Pitney and Amelia's Bitchin' Boutique podcast. Hello, Amelia.
Hello, Amelia.
And she says, hi, guys. Hope I get this in on time. And yes, I'm so sorry you did not. So the next piece of feedback. No, she didn't.
Moving on.
Moving on. No, she did. You beat the buzzer, so you're good. And she went on to say, I'm excited about the anthology-style series because I'm into getting glimpses of life in other areas. But I'm sure I'll always have things to say. Like, this episode was good, but all I can really think to talk about is, really, Joe gets multiple F-bombs in this episode when Negan never got one? And how the hell are you ain't going to take her bunker? That place is nice, and nice is all in caps. And she's clearly got a nice supply of hash in the kitchen. Which is true. And like she said, it ain't Betty Crocker. And then she goes on, she finishes up by saying, looking forward to Parker Posey next week. She never disappoints. And I everything in this feedback I agree with there. That I noticed the potty mouth too. And
I
you're
forgot
right.
to mention that.
It was multiple, and I didn't make the connection that you did, Amelia, of like, man, it would have been nice to have Negan be a little bit more like comic book Negan. Whereas, this Terry Crews character who we're only going to see one time, he gets to swear basically every other line, and poor Jeffrey Dean Morgan, had to be very particular about his potty mouth, and he never got the F-bomb. I didn't go there. I just kind of chalked it up to we're just, further along, and AMC, is either the limits have changed, the rules have changed, and they can get away with it now. That was really my reaction of like, wow, they're using some really some sailory kind of language here that's unusual. Stuff about the bunker, totally agree. We talked about that, and I'm right there with you in that I love Parker Posey. I've always loved Parker Posey. I think she is a really amazing and interesting actor, and she makes very interesting choices in not just her projects, but in her performance. So I am super excited for next week's episode.
Yes. Very exciting. It's funny. I wonder if we're opening the door and we're going to see a lot of F-bombs in the final 8 of Walking Dead. Like maybe they floated them out there and AMC's like, nobody's watching these shows anyway on regular broadcast TV, so who cares?
Yeah,
it's probably true. Most people are streaming it.
But remember when in the regular show when Daryl dropped the F-bomb?
Yeah.
Just recently to Lance, when he was threatening, I think, Maggie's kid, right? And he was talking to him about, trying to get him to fess up to what happened or whatever, and then he comes out of nowhere and drops the F-bomb. And didn't they say like on Talking Dead or something that they like AMC only gets so many a season, and they got to really kind of like so apparently there's like some sort of industry like rule limiting for the type of channel they can only swear like that so many times or so. I remember them talking about that before, and so that's what struck me about this episode is that apparently that rule has gone away because there was I think 3 F-bombs in this episode. So
I'm curious. I watched it through the AMC app, right? My DVR recorded it when it broadcast on Sunday night, but that's not the version I watched. So I'm curious if it was unedited for the streamed version and is edited. So like maybe they like allowed the one, or they, turned it into a like the audio edited the one that was going to be on AMC, the network.
Maybe they good placed it and it was forking.
Yeah, maybe. He could have said forking. I would believe that from Joe.
Yeah, I did too. I could see him, having that weird like I don't like you, but I'm gonna be polite when I don't like you. I could totally see him making that decision. But that's a really interesting point, Amelia, that you brought up, and I would love to see what AMC's official reasoning for that is, if they have any.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll ever hear anything about it. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but on AMC Plus, when you go to the Tales of the Walking Dead like page, if you will, right, where they show the season 1 and they have info and then they list all the episodes, they have this episode up there, and they also have a Talking Dead like preview episode on there about this one. Now, I did not watch it yet, but it is available, and so maybe they talk a little bit about that hey, this is going to be a little bit grittier than we've seen before, and people are going to be a little more potty mouth than we've seen. I don't know. I didn't watch it yet, but it is something that's there that maybe we could get a little bit of a glimmer into what's going on.
Yeah, that was actually that broadcast on AMC last weekend. So sort of like it was like a preview of like all the stuff that's coming up in the Walking Dead world. They did have Terry Crews on to talk about that, but they also had like a piece of video and talked to Lauren Cohen about, the filming of the Maggie Negan stuff. And, and Chris wanted to talk about the San Diego Comic-Con stuff about the Rick and Michonne series, whatever, which we'll get to when we get to news. But right. I don't remember them talking about the F-bomb, but they did talk about, the new series. They did a lot of clips from the episodes, like here's a sneak peek of blah blah blah, and I did a lot of forwarding because I just didn't want to be
okay.
Because my feeling is when you show if you're going to give me a sneak peek on Talking Dead of an episode, you're giving me like a minute from an episode that's going to connect to 7 other episodes, right? If they give me 2 minutes from this episode, it's 2 minutes of people I've never met before that I'm never going to see again. So it's going to spoil something that's very self-contained. And I haven't been watching any commercials for this show. I haven't been, anytime there's clips, I forward through and blah, blah, blah. So when I watched maybe they talked about the F-bomb on that one. I don't remember, but I will admit I did forward a lot because I didn't want to be spoiled about this episode or this series at all. So you'll have to watch it and let me know if they do cover it. That'd be interesting to see. So
yeah.
All right. So moving on. Excellent feedback, Amelia. As always, thanks so much. Hope to hear from you every week. If you have thoughts on the episode, send them in.
Absolutely.
Next up, we got some feedback from Cindy Wigglesworth. Cindy left her feedback on Facebook. She did not leave her Facebook on feedback because that's what my brain wants to say. No, that's I flipped that in my head and I auto-corrected myself.
It sounded so much better in your head, didn't it?
Yeah, everything does. So Cindy told us about the episode. She says, I thought it was just okay. I didn't care for the end, knowing it was a one and done. My husband did say he would watch next week with me. And I have to say that when I watched the episode, my wife came in and she was she loves Terry Crews. And when we were watching, she was very interested. And she liked the fact that she didn't need to know everything about all the other people. Because that's the thing. She can't sit and watch like 17 episodes of something in a row. That's my superpower. She wants to watch like one thing and then get up and go do a craft project or whatever. So she liked that it was all self-contained. And when it was done, she was like, I would watch this with you every week. And I'm like, okay. So same thing. So Cindy, your spouse and my spouse are both interested, and I wonder if it's just because of the whole, like, I don't need to know everything about everything. I just have to follow along for this one episode. So
yeah, could be.
Could be. So, speaking of next episodes, next week we will be covering episode 2 from this maiden voyage season 1 of Tales of the Walking Dead. Next week's episode, they are, like I said, using the same naming component with the 2 names of people in the title. So the title of this episode is Blair/Gina. So those are probably the 2 characters that we will meet. One of them being that blonde gal and the other one probably being Parker Posey, because since we know that's the episode. So here's
the blonde gal, I have seen her in other stuff. I cannot put a name with the face, but she is an actor that has done a bunch of other television projects. So it is, again, it's someone that is a known actor in television world that is crossing over here and doing this show. So it's wanted to say that.
Yeah, and she appears on that show with Terry Crews to talk about being on Walking Dead, and it's actually pretty funny because Terry Crews is a Walking Dead huge super fan, so he talks about being cast on the show from that perspective. And I want to say, I keep wanting to say Blair because that's one of the names there. I can't remember the actress's name, but when she was talking, she said that her mom is a huge horror fan. So she's been watching horror movies and stuff like that her whole life. And she grew up around it. And her mom was so excited when she found out she got this job. So I think that's adorable. That's really cute.
That is adorable. That's awesome. Yeah.
So here's the description that AMC has given us for next week's episode, titled Blair/Gina. In a fast-paced, reality-twisting buddy action heist, a disgruntled receptionist and her overbearing boss are trapped together as the city of Atlanta collapses under the Walker apocalypse, forcing them to work together in order to escape the city. Interesting. I think that's the first time we've ever seen AMC refer to it as the Walker apocalypse.
Yeah, that's an interesting phrase. seeing that, reading this description, and then seeing the little snippets we've gotten of it, this episode it has a very strong Run Lola Run vibe. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
No.
It's a German film, and the star is this gal named Frankie Potente, who she was in the Bourne movies with Matt Damon.
Yeah.
For a while, and it's kind of like a Groundhog Day setup where she is this character named Lola, and she has to like get this money to like help her boyfriend out or something, or he's going to get killed. It's like he's like a drug deal goes bad or something, and he owes bad people a lot of money, and so she makes a decision to go to one place to try and get the money, and it doesn't work. And then it sort of rewinds the day, and she gets to do it again, but she makes a different decision. That kind of thing where it's like trying different, something that could never ever happen in real life, right? But here she gets the luxury of, I'm going to try what's behind door number 1, and if that doesn't work, the day somehow rewinds, and I remember what happened the first time. So now the second time I'm going to go for door number 2, and we're going to see what happens. And that's kind of based on what you just read there and what I've seen. It's sort of like, okay, they're going to like Parker Posey's going to try and get away, and she'll get killed, and then boom, they'll be back, alive. And then the other gal's going to try and get away by herself, and then she's going to get killed, and then we're back, and then now they're going to start working together, but they don't work together the right way, like that kind of thing. That's what my take is on this. So I'm super excited for this because we've never seen this before in The Walking Dead.
Yeah, it's a very, very different perspective on the storytelling. So I am as well very, very excited. Yay! Speaking of excited, before we start talking about all the other Walking Dead news and things, I have to tell you, people, are you aware that we interviewed the amazing and talented Patricia Tallman? You aren't? Well, that's terrible. No. Well, here's what you need to do. After you're finished listening to this podcast, you need to back up to the one directly behind it, because about mid-July, when we weren't covering anything, we had the fantastic opportunity to sit down with Miss Tallman and by sit down, I mean we did it over Skype. Yes. We couldn't sit down with her because
we flew to Hawaii and we sat down with her.
She lives in Hawaii, and as much as I would love to sit down with her in Hawaii, that wasn't feasible. Not on my budget.
No.
So we had this great conversation. She is a doll to talk to. She's so game to talk about all of her stuff that she's been in. She's got such a horror and sci-fi slanting background. She's done the stunt work. She really is sort of like a Renaissance woman when it comes to all that stuff. She's got lots of great projects that she's doing these days. She does these travel sort of adventures for people. It's really wonderful. We had such a great time talking to her. She was very giving.
The other thing is she's an incredible nerd too. She loves sci-fi and horror and fantasy, and she's into Harry Potter, and she loves Lord of the Rings, and she's into Star Wars. I mean, so she talks the talk and she walks the walk. And like you said, from like the 80s through like the mid 90s or the early 2000s, she was a working actor / stunt person in television and movies. And and what did she say? She did like 60 Next Generation episodes or something. Like she did stunt work. I mean, so yeah, just an incredible person. And of course, we were excited to talk to her, primarily because we met her at the Living Dead weekend, because she played Barbara in the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead. So there's a huge Romero zombie connection there. But, once you get through that and find out everything else she did, oh my God, this woman is amazeballs. And she was just a doll. She was the nicest person.
Yeah, we were really lucky to be able to have that conversation. She was the one that suggested it to begin with. We went up to her and asked her about doing a quick 30-second drop for us for the podcast. She was so game. Hers is hilarious, by the way. I love it. And because she improved slightly, and I totally approve. And it was adorable. But then when she was finished recording that, she gave us her assistant's information, said she'd love to do an interview. So she was the one that really precipitated. So we are in her debt to have been able to have that opportunity. So once again, we super thank Patricia for taking the time out of her day to chat with us. And you guys, it's such a great conversation. Just back up the one episode and listen to it. We really had a great time chatting with her. Yeah.
Super cool.
So super cool. So a couple of Walking Dead universe news items. We did find out at the end of July when they had San Diego Comic-Con, they did finally release the day that the final 8 episodes are going to start airing. So the final portion, the third trimester, the baby will birth by the end of the year. The third trimester of the season 11 are we in? I totally forgot. It's 11. It comes back on October 2nd. And if you time it out, then the finale is going to be on November the 20th, which is the Sunday directly before Thanksgiving. So start making those plans now, everybody, to watch the finale somewhere with your friends, because it's going to be epic. There was a news item I saw over this past weekend that said that they're putting together, there's no details yet, but some kind of live event on that Sunday the 20th in LA. And of course, no details again, but I'm wondering if it'd be similar to the premiere ones they've done before at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. That seems like the right thing to do. And I would assume they would also show the episode as well to people. I would love to see, I'm holding out hope that they'll put that final episode in the theaters. I think that'd be such a great opportunity to see that on the big screen. I know they've done that in the past, I think with a premiere, not necessarily with a finale. But I if they did that, I'd be so game. And it'd be so easy for them to do through like the Fathom events thing. And just because they record all this stuff digitally anyway, all they have to do is literally send a file. It's not like, because I know Fathom has had issues in the past with showcasing a DVD from one location and then sending it via the internet to other people. This stuff is all recorded digitally anyway, and it's streaming, and there's digital platforms that this is going to run on. This kind of stuff is made for that Fathom events kind of stuff. So I really hope that AMC puts a little bit more oomph behind this series finale stuff that's coming, and maybe do something like that, because this is such a large community, and I think there's a large contingent of people that may have fallen by the wayside that will probably queue in just to watch that finale episode to see if it tracks with like the comic books or whatever. So it's such a great opportunity for them to, really reach the maximum amount of fans. So, but either way, whether they do or not, I'm sure I will try to, I hope that they don't release it early on the app, because I think that would be terrible. A lot of people have said that they really hope they don't release it early, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with sitting down and watching it on the 20th. I have the day marked off on my calendar so that I'll do that. So if you guys are going to have like a watch party with your friends, tell us about it. We'd love to, share and all of that with you. So that's what's happening with the main series. Finale happening on the 20th, and the final portion of the season starting on October the 2nd. Currently right now, season 8 of Fear the Walking Dead is filming. That was me gagging myself, by the way. I just didn't want to do it.
I just threw up a little bit in the back of my mouth.
Me too. Sorry, but it is news. We have to talk about it. And the Maggie and Negan series is filming as well. Like I said, that preview special that they did on Talking Dead, they did chat with Lauren Cohen a little bit. I didn't watch that because, again, I don't want to be spoiled. So I didn't listen to that part of the interview. So I don't have a lot of details, but they are filming. I'm sure there's details out there if you want them. I don't want to be spoiled, so I haven't really gone down any kind of rabbit holes on that. But the really kind of big news that hit from San Diego Comic-Con was that they are scrapping the Rick and Michonne, the Rick Grimes movies. They are instead going to do a 6-episode limited series with Rick and Michonne together and sort of wrap up their storyline, which I think is the better choice to do. And Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrero were both at San Diego Comic-Con there with Gimple. They are both helping executive produce this series, so you know that they have some approval as part of this, so I don't think we're going to get anything other than some high quality stuff. I'm crossing my fingers for it. All we've been told is 2023, so I don't know, maybe in the summer, end of the year, who knows? As far as I know, they haven't even done anything with it yet, like filming wise or whatever. It's in the planning stages. But it was nice that they made a big announcement like that. It sort of put the whole Rick Grimes movies things to rest. They are going to go back to that story. They just are going to do it in a different way. So I'm glad that they're sticking with a series as opposed to doing the movies. So what did you think about the news about the Rick and Michonne series? I don't think we've even talked about it.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm glad that they're going to resolve that. I know when we were talking with Greg Nicotero back at in Pittsburgh, we that came up, and of course, he was very, kept his cards close to the vest and didn't reveal anything, but he did say, they got to do something, basically, right? That they can't. There has to be some resolution to those two characters because they're such major parts of the show, and to just have nothing, right? They just walk into the ether or fly away in a helicopter in the ether or whatever. That the fans would be very unsatisfied and unhappy with that. So when this announcement came out, I was like, okay, well, that tracks. And that kind of, based on what he said, he probably knew this was coming and just didn't, couldn't say anything, whatever. You and I had talked a little bit, in the past about just the Rick movies and just how we've heard nothing about the Rick movies, and we started to question the reality of the Rick movies, right?
And question your own reality when you're in there.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, the Rick movies are coming, and it's like, are they though? And so I was not surprised when they came out and said, yeah, the Rick movies aren't going to happen. I'm like, yeah, that was kind of I had moved there a while ago that they weren't going to happen. But when they added but we are going to do the limited series, I was like, okay, at least we're going to get something. So I'm excited for it. I like both of those actors. I like both of those characters. I just really hope that they also can get Kaylee Fleming in there, because don't we want to see the family reunited, right? Isn't that
of course
something I think we would all like? So
yes.
And it'd be nice to do it before Kaylee Fleming graduates college.
Yeah. So I'm thinking.
So yeah. So anyway, so I'm excited for it. Like you said, I think that that they're going to be executive producing, which hopefully they'll have some creative control. A lot of times actors get executive producer credits when they want more money, and the show can't pay them more for acting, so they say, we'll make you a producer, and then you get another paycheck. So hopefully that's not just what's going on here, that they are having a say in what's going on. But like you said, it's all so new and just in the pre-production phase that we really don't know much about it at all, other than, like you said, 2023.
Yeah, that's it. I reiterate what you said. I'm glad that we're going to get some resolution with these guys. And it was looking so negative for a while that any kind of news was positive news to me. And to have Andy Lincoln and Denai Guerrero be the ones to announce it was just, that was such a great fan service moment, and I think they recognized it too. So I think they did a really good job of sort of holding those cards close to the chest and then really having maximum, like, no one knew what was happening. Chris Hardwick didn't know they were coming out. He thought they were done with their panel, and literally they were like, well, we got one more thing if you got a second, and then they literally just popped in, and it was just amazing. But and imagine being in Hall H when that happened and being like a crazy Walking Dead fan, and then all of a sudden Andy Lincoln and Denai Guerrero come in. I can't even imagine.
You have to say, imagine camping out for 5 days to get into Hall H, and then having that happen.
And then getting that. Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
yeah. So there's that. So yes, excitement. Speaking of excitement, why don't we chat about some of our con adventures from most recent, which I think our most recent is Flashback, right?
It is. It's the final one here for this recent thing. We had a big show in June, we had a big show in July, and then we had a big show in August. And it's all, yes, I need to sell one of my kidneys here because I spent a lot of money getting autographs in the last 3 months. But Flashback Weekend is the biggest horror convention in the Midwest, and it is, certainly I think it's one of the best. This year was the 20th anniversary, which was amazeballs, and so they pulled out all the stops and had the biggest dealer room they've ever had, and of course they're over in a bigger, better hotel convention center at the Hyatt Regency, which nothing against the old hotel they were in, which is the Crown Plaza. That's a cool place, but they just kind of outgrown it. They'd gotten too big for it to really be comfortable, and they had a ton of great guests. There was a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street people, so we got to see Robert Englund and a bunch of the ladies from the various Nightmare films, which was great. They were a lot of fun. Robert Englund is amazeballs. He told incredible stories. The story about Mark Hamill was unbelievable.
It was crazy, right? Good. So good.
Yeah, I did. And I don't want to spoil it if you haven't heard it, but yeah, it was just like, you're like, no flipping way, it's just how it was really cool. But for me, the big thing was we got to meet PJ Souls, who played Linda in Halloween, and she was in Carrie, and she was in just a ton of other films and projects and things. And her boyfriend from Halloween, Bob, which was John Michael Green, I think was his name, right? Isn't that his name? And
I think so, yeah.
He was there as well. So we got to meet Bob and Linda, and again, wonderful storytellers, and just, delightful, I think is the term that we like to use, right? And they were great. And then for just me personally, the other highlight was Steve Miner was there. He directed Halloween H2O. He directed Friday the 13th Part 2 and Part 3. He also directed House. He directed Warlock. He's done a ton of TV and film work other than that, but certainly he's got a lot of horror creds, and to get to talk to him was really great and cool, and his signature is now on a couple of my posters, so that was really cool. And then finally, the Night of the Comet had a reunion where they had Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney and the Belmont Girls, and that was a very surreal moment, because like I told you, Catherine Mary Stewart was like probably one of the first like Hollywood crushes I ever had. When I was like 13 and I saw her, and she was one of the first girls that I looked at and I didn't think had cooties, so and so to kind of have that kind of experience where I certainly liked the character on the screen a lot, and then to actually meet Catherine Mary Stewart, and the person Catherine Mary Stewart turned out to just be the sweetest, nicest, coolest person. They always say don't meet your heroes, right? You'll always be disappointed. And this was not that case at all. And she turned out to be just really lovely and cool. And so that was just, personally for me, that was just really great. So
it was funny because prior to us meeting Catherine Mary Stewart, Steve, of course, was like, so I should tell her. And then whatever it was you said it wasn't highly inappropriate, but it was just creepy enough that both Jody and I were like,
don't say that.
Shouldn't say that to her. So it was adorable to sort of be there, like, in our usual positions of like holding the poster tube while you talk to the celebrity. And so, Steve lays out the poster, and then he just very sweetly, the way you said first Hollywood crush, the way you did it was just very like, you made it like, I don't know.
It was not creepy.
No, it was very not creepy. It was very sweet, which is exactly how she took it. And she was very touched by the whole thing. And it was just adorable. You left out the parts about, wanting to marry her and things like that. So, which was helpful. Yeah. I think that made her feel much more at ease with you.
I'm learning. You're teaching me. See? Yeah.
He can be taught, people. He can be taught.
This is all leading up to meeting Alicia Dudnam Carey. So that you're prepping me for when that glorious experience happens. So yes.
Yeah. Good luck, sir.
I know. Good luck. That's all I do. But
may the odds be ever in your favor.
In my favor. Yeah. Thank you, Katniss. It was a great show. I think we all bought some swag, and was able to pick up a tchotchke here or there that we liked, and Jody got a bunch of signatures on one of her posters, and so it was a good time. We didn't mention there were a couple of Jasons there, so I got their signatures. I got another Jason to choke me, which was great. So now I have two chokey Jason things. I would have had Kane Hodder choke me, but he cost too much, so I didn't. But I love Flashback Weekend. I always have a good time with it. They consistently put out a good show, and Mike and Mia Kurz, who run it, do an amazing job because it's not a big corporation. It's just them, and they they really are into making sure that the people that attend the show, the not the guests, but the patrons, you and I that buy the tickets to get in, that they have a good time. And I think they do a really good job with that. So
I agree. I've only been going for a short while, and I've always had a good time, and everything's really well done. And I do like the Hyatt. I think it's a good place for them. I like having I think like the hall that they use for the Q&A panels and stuff is a great spot, and it's the proximity to where they do the photo ops, and and the floor is really well organized, and that's it's well done. It's a lot of fun. There's always good stuff to buy. There's always great vendors. I haven't quite spent all the money I'm going to spend because I found a woman who's going to custom make me a bag that I don't want to talk about just yet.
Oh, it's going to be awesome though.
I don't even want to talk about the theme. We'll get there. But when the time comes, I'm going to plug her company big time on the podcast. So we're working on a custom sort of messenger bag, and she was probably my favorite vendor we found, other than the people that had the really good Hellfire Club t-shirts. So yeah.
Yes.
We had a great time. We had a really, really good weekend. Yeah. I mean,
super fun people.
Yeah, the highlight of the weekend for me though was getting our Chinese food from the Uber Eats. They forgot to send utensils, and then Jody turned to a life of crime and stole utensils from the lobby. So
that was so great. She comes up, she's like, I got these, and we're like, holy crap!
Like an armful of cutlery roll-ups that she stole from the restaurant.
So
like, I was looking for plastic cutlery. I walked by the rrestaurant, and they had everything set up for brunch tomorrow, and I was like, this'll work. It was just so hilarious. Good. Anyway, you had to be there. So Flashback Weekend was great. Sort of a great way to end the convention season, so we can, Steve said, sort of replenish our wallets for the next time.
replenish our walls till November when Days of the Dead Chicago comes back.
That's true.
So that'll be the next show. So we got like 3.5, 4 months here to kind of save our quatroons.
Yeah, I got the penny jar working for that one. So and just wanted to put a little pat on the back for the two of us here. I put out a couple of posts the other day, but in case you missed it, a few days ago, it was our 4-year anniversary of relaunch. I know, when we relaunched the podcast with myself and Steve as co-hosts, there was a little bit of downtime between our previous co-host, Julie, and then sort of gathering ourselves. And then Steve and I premiered together 4 years ago in like the first or second week in August, whenever that was. And here we are, 4 years later.
So what is 4 years? At Wood? Is that what the anniversary is?
I thought that was 3. I feel like this was 3. I feel like you made this exact same bad joke last year.
So what is this, your glass? What is it? It's got to be something. I don't know. You married people in your crazy anniversaries. I don't know any of this stuff, people.
Anniversary gifts by year. 4th anniversary is flowers.
Oh, okay. So, all right, I'll expect my flowers to arrive soon.
Yeah, whenever that is. So, yeah. Yeah, I get that. Anniversaries by year. Yeah, well, you know what we missed last year? The 3rd anniversary is leather. Hello.
Ooh, well, you think we would have been all over that one.
Yeah. Look at this in order. 3rd anniversary is leather. Then 4th anniversary is flowers. And then 5th anniversary is wood. Hello.
Okay, so next year is wood. Hello.
Hello. Anyway, sorry, folks. We and scene, and we digress, and we are also 10 years old. So, yes. I don't think we can stick a fork in this episode. I don't think we have anything else to chat about. We probably would have been a little bit smoother with this, but man, we haven't podcasted in like a month. So, it's I know it's like riding a bike, but the wheels were a little rusty this week. I'm not gonna lie. So, yeah. I think that's it, though. I don't think we got anything else to talk about. So we're going to thank you once again for coming along on the journey and listening as you do each week when we record. We are excited to be back into doing something where we're going to be talking to you every week once again. So we're going to go ahead and sign off. But as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots just don't work. To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed. We have to get some really pithy B-roll here for you, though.
Oh, that wasn't pithy enough for you?
I suppose, if that's what you consider pithy these days.
If that's what you go for. And scene. That's what we're using.